Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Darko. I run a website called Digital Audio Review, also known as DAR. And we are here today to discuss nothing to do with digital really per se, but more affordable audio. And I'll introduce the panel first before I go off on a tear for 10 minutes about affordable audio before coming back to them. So on the end here we have Paul Bråtelund from TIDAL.
I made it.
And we have Kathleen Thomas from AudioQuest.
Woo!
And I'll also jump straight across to Steve Guttenberg from the Audiophiliac, CNET, and Stereophile, because David Solomon here is represents many brands, but right now he's representing Audioengine, but has also worked for AudioQuest and TIDAL, and is a multifaceted and talented guy.
Like a rag doll.
Can't hold a job.
Can't hold a job, right. So this panel came about because of 3 rooms that are currently in place upstairs, featuring audio gear that is priced at a sort of sane level. $1,500 for a total system, $1,000 for a total system, and even $500 for a total system. And this came about because of a panel I sat on last year in New York with Steve Guttenberg, and it was about 20th century audiophiles, but there was a lot of conversation about price points and what makes audio, excuse me, what price points are relevant to the average consumer. And I remember Steve saying, I won't try and impersonate Steve's wonderful Brooklyn accent, but he was saying that $500 is an absolute staggering amount of money for a lot of people to spend on audio, especially the man in the street. And then Steve started to talk about something I'll show in a moment, $60 speakers from Dayton Audio and a LEPI integrated amplifier. So when we, 3 weeks after that New York audio show, we came here, and we were talking to Marjorie and saying, wouldn't it be really cool if you could put on 3 rooms at this show next year that feature exactly those kind of affordable systems? And Marjorie ran with the idea, and that's why those rooms are operating upstairs right now, and why we're in this room as well. Now, my rationale for kind of really pushing hard on this affordable audio, not agenda, but like this thing, is because I was thinking about how if I brought my non-audiophile friends to this show, what they might see and what kind of impression they would leave with. And I think that they might see a lot of this, right? And, perfect timing, Scott Hull has just entered. And this is actually Scott Hull's photograph, so I can give him... and they might see this as well. Now, not only is this stuff expensive, it's very, very good. No doubt about that, it's very good. It's expensive, but it's also quite, as you can see, it's quite physically intrusive. It takes over the space in which it sits. And lastly, I kind of found this one on Google. I know that there are some people for whom this is fantastic. This is their peak achievement in life. I don't know. But it's not only is it not affordable to the average guy, but it lacks a bit of relevance, I think. The two go hand in hand. So the problem is if you kind of talk to, I think, you talk to a lot of these guys that sell and make these big high-end systems, their retort is, I don't want to listen to MP3s on a Bluetooth speaker. And fair enough. But I do sometimes. I've got a little UE Boom in my hotel room upstairs. This is the new Kef Muo Bluetooth speaker. I'm sure it's very good. It's just about being fit for purpose. So some people want super high-end systems, and some people, like my girlfriend, is very happy with something like this, and $500 to her for this would be an absolutely outrageous price, but that's a different argument. But if I could just move to, these were the speakers that Steve Guttenberg pointed us to last year. The Dayton Audio, Steve, what's B652, catchy name. They sell for $60, and this is the model with the ribbon tweeter. Now, this is obviously not going to be as good as some of those other systems I've shown you, but they're $60. You know, you can get an integrated amp with those, and I reckon they'd sound reasonable. They would be fit for purpose for somebody's like little studio, or I don't know. So you might want to put something together like this Emotiva integrated amp with those $219. There you go. And this is not a Class D amp.
It's a real amplifier.
Very droll, Steve. Steve's come a long way since the Police Academy franchise dissolved. So that I wanted to make sure that this seminar was on brand for my panelists. So I thought I would also feature in my little introduction here stuff what they make. David Solomon represents Audioengine. These are Audioengine's A5 active speakers, $469 a pair for this bamboo finish. I think they're $399 for the white or the black, which can also be seen in Auralix's room, who are releasing that Aries Mini streamer this weekend, well, this month, and they're showing with these kinds of speakers. This is something I own. I've got one of these, a little Pioneer turntable. It's a Technics clone. I think Kathleen has also got one of these. Yeah. Did you want to say anything about how awesome this is for the money?
Super awesome.
Super awesome, right.
It is incredibly awesome. And it looks just like a Technique.
Yeah. So it's direct drive.
But we actually compared it, Herb Reichert and I compared it to the Techniques. You can hear me. I don't like talking to... Anyway, so we compared it, and they were different. But I can't say that the Techniques, which is, revered, at least in certain quarters, I prefer this one. And this one is new, and, it doesn't have anybody's bugs on it or anything. Huh?
Techniques doesn't make the SL1200 anymore, and this is actually in production.
It's ironic
so
that Techniques has reintroduced the brand without the turntable.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird. But it's coming. Brilliant.
Well, there's a turntable coming next year from Technics, but it's not going to be a DJ table, and it's not going to be priced at below $1,000. It's going to be $5,000, I think. And it looks like I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. It's like a kitchen sink with a platter on it. But anyway, apart from the projects and the Rigas, this is a very good bet for $700. It's an awesome table for the money.
Even for people who consider themselves serious audiophiles, who say belt drive is the only way, Herb Reichert, me, Michael Trey, were really impressed with this turntable. And I got to say, living with it during the period I reviewed it, it has a different hands-on feel than a belt drive turntable. It just has this solidity. I found myself oddly attracted to it. I thought, I like this. This is wrong, and I like it. And the other thing that's really cool is I've never seen a belt drive turntable with a light that scans across the record.
That light's awesome.
So in the dark, you could have a pitch black room and put on a record and play track 3 and hit it right on the money. You don't see, Lynn doing that, or EPI.
And you don't have to lift off the platter and move the belt to change the speed. And when you do click between 33 and 45, it is instantaneous. And this thing spins up really, in the torque on this, I don't know. Somebody will know far more about the specs of this than I.
That they used to have this thing of a guy screwing in a light bulb. He was standing on the turntable, and the turntable would go around, and he would just hold his hand there. And
I'd not seen that.
You never seen it? Okay. It worked.
All right.
Yeah. In other words, a human being could stand on this turntable and turn at 33 and 30.
Anyway, these are just kind of examples. This is something from AudioQuest. Again, I'm being on brand here. This is their about to be soon. Is it about to be released or soon to be released?
Yeah, probably another 3 weeks.
Right, 3 weeks. So this is a Bluetooth Toslink DAC. And Toslink's really important here because Toslink is the kind of consumer standard of digital audio connectivity. Televisions, gaming consoles, even Sonos. Sonos sounds, if you get a Sonos Connect, it sounds much better over Toslink than it does over coax. It's super noisy over coax. But this has got asynchronous Bluetooth, and I think the code was designed by Gordon Rankin.
Absolutely.
Right.
It also is a USB DAC.
Right.
Too.
Oh, it's a USB DAC as well. Oh, yes, of course it is, yeah.
Well, what happened was, that's where the power supply was, and we were like, well, shit, it's already a DAC. We may as well make it a USB DAC, too.
Right. So this has changed since I first saw it then? Right, okay.
Made a USB DAC.
Right.
Asynchronous. It can also run off of your phone.
Right.
So it's the new lower powered DAC chip, so it doesn't draw too much.
So I've clicked through to this one because this actually relates to the previous AudioQuest DAC, I think. And I don't know whether many of you guys have seen this week because it's only just been announced. Google, the product here is not the speaker, it's this little dongle thing that goes in the back. And this is a audio streamer made by Google that sells for $35. And you can remote control it with your phone. And the idea is, it's a bit like it's the audio version of the Chromecast. Does anybody here have a Chromecast? Anybody? One person has a Chromecast. 2 people. 3 or 4 or 5. There we go, Chromecast.
I like how one person admits
Right.
it and everybody raises their hand.
So you know how you can remote control it with your phone, and then it pulls content over the LAN. It's not streaming via your phone. This thing here will do exactly that, but with audio. So at launch, I think Spotify are on board. Deezer also, which I would assume that brings in Deezer Elite's lossless streaming. Paul, did you want to say anything about when TIDAL might be included in this new Google ecosystem?
We're working on it, but we also have lots of video. So
Right.
So we have to design a lot of like video now playing screens and music video playlists that we want to finish off before we put it on there. But it's definitely been worked on.
Right.
So I think by Christmas CES time, it will be.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So this also has a digital output, a Toslink output, so that could technically go into the previous AudioQuest DAC, because the inbuilt DAC in this thing is probably not going to be not great, but okay for the average consumer, and definitely okay for $35. And I think this product is really going to threaten to trouble. Well, I think it will cause Sonos some sleepless nights unless they've got something in the bag or ready to go to rival this. I don't know about what you guys think about that, but
I look at it like the Apple TV. I would have thought years ago that people would have started using the Apple TV a lot more for audio than they did for video, but it never did quite happen. So we'll see how this one pops up. Because it really is, you've got a great point there. If you just take the optical out of this thing and run it into a decent DAC, it'll do, 1648?
I think somebody commented it on our post that I wrote about this. Apparently, it does 2496.
Okay, so it'll do 2496. Just like John said, it probably doesn't have the greatest analog output section, but you run that into a great little DAC, and this would be a good suggestion maybe for some of your friends that don't want to spend, $250, $350, $550 on Sonos or above. This is a really, really cheap way to do it.
So I bumped into the guys that make the Vanuatu active monitors. I don't know whether you guys are aware of those. They're powered monitors, $500. And I mentioned this to them, and they'd seen it, and they knew of it, and they were just super excited about it because they can just hook this directly into the back of their left powered speaker, which has got a DAC in it as well with an optical connection. And that's it, they're set. 2 speakers, this thing disappears. I think it's interesting what you say about the Apple TV, because I was about to hang my hat on that being the next big step for consumer digital audio. And then Apple introduced the App Store for the Apple TV. They beefed up the remote so it looks all fancy now, but they took away the optical output, so now it's just HDMI out. So
It's the stupidest thing.
But we have to remember that we kind of live in a very tiny little, wafer thin niche, So, but I guess the Apple TV is relevant to the average consumer. So it's like what I call a kind of a bridging device. It bridges our world with the world out there, and I think this does the same. But I think also to a degree, all of the products that I've kind of mentioned so far, and hopefully we'll talk about some more in a bit, bridge the rest of the world with our kind of wacky wonderland, whatever you want to call it, of audiophile world. So I don't know. Does anybody else want to say anything about this, Paul?
I'm not so sure if it threatens any. I don't think it makes anyone at Sonos sleepless.
Really?
No. But hopefully, one segment it will threaten is the Bluetooth speakers of people. Instead of moving to shitty Bluetooth cans,
Sure.
they have a decent stereo from some time, and then they can use this.
Can I ask you, why do you think it won't threaten Sonos? I'm genuinely interested. Is it just because it's so far below their price point or so far removed from what they do?
You're going into a shop and you want to buy some Sonos.
I think it opens it up.
Yeah.
I think if anything, it's engaging more people.
Yeah.
Right,
The
and
more,
that's
the more
yeah.
people, the more
Agree.
people you engage and say, hey, yeah, okay, you may be listening to a Bluetooth speaker. Well, now for $35, you can be doing a much better job.
But
And you're only opening up that world to more people.
And a thing called stereo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I always thought that with, because I'd been using the Apple TV for like the last, well, since it actually came out, when it used to have the hard drive in it, I started using it then thinking, wow, Apple's got, 4 billion customers or whatever. We can show them how to use this technology to a level they never, even thought, things that they didn't even know that it could do, namely music. And then when it switched to the little square box Apple TV, I started using that exclusively, literally show after show after show. And I kept thinking, this is going to catch on at some point. But for some reason, it really never did. That's why I think Paul's right. I mean, if we in this community can help out people that don't know what's going on and can turn them on to a $35 device like this that can actually perform and be some sort of a gateway, I think we'll be doing our friends in our industry a big service. But I don't know. I mean, I preached it hard for a decade, and it just didn't seem to matter.
I remember a couple of years ago when you were demoing a Peachtree system and you had an Apple TV streaming MOG. Is that right? You were doing MOG through that?
And that was doing 20. That would do 1648. Now you're telling me this will do 2496.
Yeah.
God, I'm switching over. I'll use.
And honestly, this looks way more fun.
It sure
I mean,
does.
that's the thing. It's a lot of it has to do with the form factor, and I think that the more fun we can make this. I've been kind of on this little soapbox lately about, hey guys, it's called playing music. Maybe we should be having fun with this.
Yeah, we're not saving puppies.
Shit. And I think we need to do a better job, I think, of embracing things like this and making it fun. And it's only going to open that up and actually bring more people to Sonos and bring more people. You need those gateway drugs to get people in.
I agree.
And we need those opportunities to invite people in.
Absolutely. So I think we need to be fully endorsing. That's why we're here today. Is to for me, at least, and you guys as well, to endorse these products and have them in rooms upstairs, saying, yes, these are bona fide. You want to call them audiophile? I don't care what you want to call them, but these are good products. They're on a sliding scale. The world of audiophile, it's not black and white. It's not amazing and terrible. There's a lot in between that can pull people in, and that's. You look around this place and, I don't know, like, I don't want to say we're not young, but not many of us are. And so, like, who is going to get excited about this who's 25 and 35 and, I don't know, like, that Google streamer I think looks fantastic. I wanted to, does anybody have any points or questions they want to make at this point? Anybody want to say anything? Anybody want to?
You expect that? I guess I didn't catch the stream. Can we see that device here?
The Google device.
I'm not seeing that you're going to be able to get the bandwidth to get a good signal, for high quality digital.
What do you mean by bandwidth? Like
You're supposed to stream.
So it's like a dongle about this big. It has a combo jack on one side, so it can output analog 3.5 mil, or you can have a mini Toslink and go into a DAC. And on the other side, it connects to USB power, so 5 volts. But you configure it by connecting it wirelessly to your home network. So then it will then pull Spotify streams, Deezer streams, and eventually TIDAL and whatever from the internet. But I think it will also stream content stored on your LAN. So if you've got like a NAS drive and things like that, it will pull from there. But I'm a bit hazy on that because this only came out 2 days ago. It was only announced 2 days ago.
It should. If it's working like the Apple TV, there's no reason why I couldn't pull from your library or the.
I have a question though. I mean, and this is directed to anybody in the room here as well as the panel. Do people here think that anything above 1644 Redbook is super relevant to the consumer level or the entry level audiophile coming in?
Hey, I got a better question. How many people here are regularly buying high-res audio downloads? Okay, that's more than I would have thought. Okay, so you're special.
How many people here stream from a lossless streaming service, whether it be Deezer or TIDAL or? Where my mind kind of short circuits is I kind of look at spending $20 a month streaming TIDAL and go, that's a great deal because it brings the CD store into my house, and I'm sure you users will probably agree with that. And then you go over to HD Tracks or another high-res download site and you look for an album, $24.96. So you're getting this much better quality. It's going to cost you another $20 just for that one album. And I can't remember who I was talking to last night, and we were expressing concerns for the future of downloads and whether they were going to be even existing in 5 years' time. Does anybody have any comments?
I guess that depends on how fast high-res streaming, 9624 streaming happens, and what that's going to cost.
Can I say something?
Please, Paul.
It's quite funny. It's a year since we launched here in the US, and that was here.
Yes.
So and we spoke to a lot of people, even people making digital streamers, and they were like, yeah. And then wouldn't it be cool if I could take my files with me on the plane? It's like, yeah. You mean offline mode? It's like, oh, I've never seen that before. And then wouldn't it be cool if I could take those files with me and play on the computer? It's like, yeah, that's the whole concept. But why are you so in love with the files? Why do you want to manage files? Like, yeah, I haven't dealt with files in 5 years. Only in production I've dealt with files, never in playback. So it's quite interesting to see how people move away from files as an important concept. Files are not, I mean, how fun is it to curate? For some people, it's porn to curate a library. But
if you're going to curate a library, it's way more fun to do it on vinyl.
Yeah.
Way more fun.
Absolutely.
It's also way more expensive as well.
Yeah.
It's
Not necessarily.
no, but as opposed, it's no more expensive than buying a $24.96 album.
For sure, yeah.
And it's a lot more fun. A lot more
for
fun.
you. No, I actually don't. No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
But that's all that matters. There's a tactile. You have a tactile, ritual interaction with your music.
Yeah.
And then you have the rabbit hole of going on streaming and finding all this, having just the whole universe in front of you. And I don't think curating digital high-res files is very fun.
It's really tedious and boring having to.
And that's why I listen to music, is to have fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, I mean, high-res. Yeah, I was one of the few raising my hands when you asked if high-res is important. Yes, I think it is, and I don't think it is because of the specification. I sat on this panel at MIDEM in France, and this guy from the Sony high-res logo was sitting next to me, and suddenly it dawned on me, it's like the whole story is wrong. I mean, it's been hijacked by the wrong people, the whole conversation. I mean, no artist ever moved into a studio to create a 9624-bit file. That was not the artist's intention ever. They went in to make good music.
Right.
And they recorded it at a format which the budget allowed.
Right.
And then the whole conversation for us, obviously now also owned by artists, is that we delivered what they created in the studio. Mm-hmm. That's it. We don't want to tamper with the file. If that was a 9624-bit file, fine. If it was DXD, super. We'll try to transport that file to the listener. That's the whole story. Forget about 24-bit. People even here don't know what 24-bit does. A lot of people. I mean, the important bit is, can we transport what was made without cutting off anything?
Right.
And soon we can. And I think that's the important bit about high-resolution audio. I mean, can we deliver what was made?
But I think it needs to be fun. Do you think it needs to be invisible to the end user? So they're not sweating what kind of resolution and bit depth this file is. So if they're streaming from whatever service, they're just streaming whatever that came out of the studio straight down the pipe into their phone or streamer or whatever, and they don't have to worry about that.
And that's not one thing. I mean, what came out of the studio for many, many years was Redbook, because it was printed on plastic and sold as CDs. So that's what we have. And now, I don't know anyone is producing anything less than 9624. And
really? No.
Right, I would.
Absolutely not true.
So if you
Sorry.
look at the list of new res releases on
What do you mean, Steve?
If you go to HD Tracks or Pono Music, you'll see most new recordings are 48/24 with a sprinkling of 96 or 88 or 92. Very few contemporary artists record in high res.
Yeah. Okay.
Old records,
all the people I know do it.
remastered
Yeah.
analog recordings are the majority of high-res material that's available and has been since 1999 when
Yeah.
all of the high-res things started. And I kept waiting, like, so when are people who are living today making music going to be recording in high-res? I'm still waiting,
Yeah.
still not seeing it. And people can say, it's coming with Pono or whatever, it's coming. I don't see it coming. It's not happening.
But that's, I mean, that's a super important fact. I asked some of my friends, like, why is this album in 48/24? It's like, we ran out of Pro Tools channels.
Right.
Yeah. So we just had to budget. So and this is the pragmatics of recording music. And I also, it's fun for me because I come from a recording background, but also I'm at shows like this, and I hear anecdotes about how recordings were made. And it's like, have you ever been in a studio? Do you know how records are made? Because this is like the Bible. It sounds like you have a crazy idea what music is in the studio.
So if I'm to read between the lines and try to draw, I'll come to you in a moment, sir. I read between the lines, just draw the points together here. If high-res delivery is, let's say the downloads go away because, let's say interest fades because we're going to move towards a streaming world, for the majority of people, especially those out in the street or kind of just peering behind the curtain to see how they can get better sound. If high-res gets delivered to them in their $20 TIDAL or lossless, whatever subscription service, they don't need to sweat it anymore. It's all automatically arrives. And they get the best that's available. I guess it's a bit like what Neil Young says about Pono Store. Like if the artist gives us 48, we just give you the best available.
Yeah.
And
I
that
agree
would be
with that story.
So if you can stream, I mean, this is, I don't want to touch on MQA, I really don't want to get into it, but but if MQA can deliver high-res down the pipe invisibly to the user for $20 a month, that's the affordability factor there is fantastic. That's amazing.
Yeah. But we're not going to take your files away or your CDs or your vinyl.
Thank
We're
you.
allowed to do it.
Thanks.
Go crazy.
Appreciate it.
So somebody, which gentleman wanted to make it? There's a couple of points from the audience. Are there any microphones out in the audience there?
Nah.
Well, one of the problems that we're having is this is an audio show and we can't hear you guys.
Right.
Sit closer.
So can you hear me okay? Oh, so
Oh,
we're
you're
holding
speaking
too
at a
far away. Right, okay. So we need to, I guess, talk more into the
Use the
microphones.
mics. All right, use the mics.
You had a comment or a question, sir? Did you want to turn the mic on? There's a button on the front that says... No?
You can tell I'm not into high-res anything. I'm confused about a particular point that you all were just discussing.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to a site like HD Tracks or any or Pono, and it has a file listed as high def, but it was recorded on analog in 1978, is that high res? I thought that if you initially started with an analog recording and you now have somebody putting it into a high res whatever, that doesn't make it high res. Am I confused on that?
All analog is high res.
Yeah, analog is high res.
Yeah.
And
Like film is high definition.
Okay.
and it's a
Same
the
same
transfer in-
analogy works.
Yeah, the transfer is important. I mean, if you take that tape out with white gloves and put it on a tuned, really nice playback device, and then you want to capture that signal, obviously you want to capture at the best possible way. So, yes, it is high res.
I mean, what makes it high res was the transfer from analog to digital. The resolution of the transfer is what determines whether or not it's high resolution.
It can be high res, or it can be what you would consider audibly high res or not. We're Americans. Most Americans, if it says 5, it's going to be better than 4. I've got news for you. There's a lot of this 2496 stuff that's out there that was transferred. That when it was transferred, it was simply compressed, made louder, and a lot of the stuff doesn't even sound as good as the 1644 stuff. We're not talking analog to digital now. We're talking 1644 to 2496 or to 24192.
The quality of the mastering.
Somebody got the idea that if we put 2496 on it, that more people will buy it because they think it will sound better. And I got news for you. That is happening a lot. But don't be fooled by just the number. Hopefully you can audition these things, or at least a small amount of them, before you buy them, because some of them are worse than the 1644 recording that you could get standard for $20 cheaper.
To tell you the truth, I think the earlier masterings of albums to CD in the 80s and 90s sound better than the remastered CD 16-bit 44.1 because they're less compressed and less screwed around with. It's remastered. Remastered to sound louder. Much louder. I mean, sometimes shockingly louder, 10 dB louder.
One thing I'm concerned about, though, is we're starting to talk about formats and data
not
rates and all
affordable
this kind of
audio,
stuff. And we're not talking about affordable audio. And you know what? This turns people off.
Yeah.
This is that. These kind of conversations
Let's
are what make real, actual people that come in.
Can we move the conversation over to? Do you want to make a point, sir? Then we can move it over to vinyl. I want to talk about vinyl as turntables.
What the initial thrust was all about excitement. Okay. And I got to tell you, format has nothing to do with excitement. The problem is most people have never heard a good transducer in their life. And by transducer, I mean at one extreme end, a cello.
Right.
Okay. And at the other end, something like a magnepan. Okay. Or something really hot where it's kind of undeniable if it had a good signal as a pretty good transducer. That's where emotional engagement occurs, when you hear a primary sound that touches your nervous system without your brain being engaged. And right now, we're living in a world of just terrible transducers, okay? And so there isn't any curiosity about what might I need to get there, whether it's cheap or expensive, without it ever touching the nerves primarily. If I had a dream in a better world, every kid would sit on a baggage transport to a symphony orchestra, because that's undeniable. If you're in the middle of that, there's very few people who are not touched by it. And you need that neural excitement to care anything about gear at all.
Right. So you say you got to go to concerts before you can really think about.
You have to have an experience. I mean, it's more like if you really want to revive this industry, it's not about gear and it's about marketing. It's about creating an experience.
Right.
Kind of like how the motorcycle guys have track days where they bring out stuff you'd never ride in your life. Like I've never ride a Goldwing. You ride one and wow, it's a really different experience. And so that same thing of having that sonic experience with a good recording, It's like my son goes, wow, that AM stuff from the 60s, it sounds better even on the shitty truck radio. It's because it's a better mix.
And to be honest, actually, it is both great and depressing. But when we play lossless to a lot of people, they go, wow. It's like, it's the sound of CDs, but wow. Yeah. Because they grew up with MP3.
It wasn't about this. It's about creating that sonic moment where your nerves are touched, and then that generates curiosity.
Sure.
The rest of it is just intimidating.
But let's say you ignite that curiosity, and then somebody curious comes to one of these kind of shows and then sees all those big ass hi-fi setups that I showed at the start in the PowerPoint. They're going to be turned off, and I think this is what we're talking about with these affordable rooms here. Are there to capture those people that come in and go, well, because as Steve said last year, $500 is a staggering amount of money for somebody who's curious.
Exactly. Single driver is simple too. You got to find some place where you start telling the story where the sonic excitement is kind of undeniable. You might not be rattling the window panes, but you're still touching the nerve endings with something that's very real. And that single driver kit plus tube is kind of the smallest spot I see. I kind of missed the first couple of slides here.
Sure. I got to say, so I did a story a few years ago about people under 40 who just got their first turntable. and went from 14 to about 40. And they all told me the same thing. That is that when they played vinyl, they listened to it. And when they played digital, before they owned a turntable, they had it on and did other things. So in terms of listening, it's that old line, you got to get their attention. So if people have whatever on, and it's just background to other things, well, it's automatically less important, less valuable, and less of interest to them to buy a better speaker or anything else, right? So different people like different types of music. But I thought it was fascinating that these six or seven people all told me that they actually listen. And the thing about vinyl, whether it sounds better than digital or the other way around, is a personal opinion. But when you play a record, you're automatically involved. You took the record out. You put it on the turntable. You put the needle in the groove. You're there. When you're playing TIDAL or streaming or digital, no offense, you're not. It's just sort of there, right? So I really do. I think analog vinyl sounds better than digital, even most high res, in terms of engaging people that they would want to listen. And I think that's the thing. I define anyone who listens to music at least some of the time without doing other things as an audiophile. The gear they listen to it on is irrelevant. If they're listening to TIDAL occasionally and listening to it without texting or talking or cooking or frying or doing other things, they're audiophiles. No matter what it is, on earbuds, I don't care, as long as they're listening. But I think the ratio of people who listen tends to be much higher when they play records. And that's the gateway drug. So I did this thing, which I talked about last year, with a $100 Audio-Technica turntable called the AT-LP60 that includes a phono cartridge and a built-in phono preamp and a pair of Audioengine A2 Plus speakers that are $250 stereo, unlike most Bluetooth speakers. And for $350, you're in. That's it. You're set. You have a complete audiophile-ready system that is more likely to be listened to than a Bose Bluetooth speaker by far.
I think
so, that's it.
Just to join the dots between what you 1 second, between what you said and what Steve has just said is, trying to ignite the experience in people, ignite something in people's heads through experience is exposing them to stereo, because one thing that Bluetooth speakers have erased over time is the experience of having stereophony left and right channels. And a lot of people just kind of have this one thing here, which is fine if you're traveling, whatever, but generally people just see music now as this kind of this monobox experience. And the DVLA Phantom's doing nothing for that at the moment, but that's a different argument, I guess. But so you wanted to say something?
Yeah. My experience, I'm going to date myself here, started with a speaker called the Rogers LS35A.
Mm-hmm.
And I look around at the stuff nowadays, and I don't see that much advancement to that sound, because that was an amazing sounding, talk about emotional sounding speaker for me.
Sure.
It got me into the high-end audio. Now there's just so much confusion. There was more of a simple system. You got the integrated amplifier, you bought the speakers, you bought a reasonable turntable.
Testing. You bought a reasonable turntable, and you could play classical music. I'm sure that you guys have heard that speaker.
Of course. Yeah.
But it was just, to me, it was just an amazing sound, and I don't think the sound has improved that much from that design as far as being reasonable. In other words, if you compare the Dayton audio speaker that you can get for $500 to an LS35A, that's
$69, by the way.
$69.
The
Okay.
the LS35As were much more expensive speakers.
It's $500, I think, when I priced it
Well,
back in the
in those dollars.
Right.
In those dollars. So a couple of months ago, I reviewed the Magnapan 0.7, which is $1,400, roughly the same price as that speaker, more or less. And that's an amazing speaker. Way better, no offense, than LS35As. I mean, they're not all better, but there are better speakers than LS35As for the equivalent amount of dollars.
It just seems to me that the technology,
Okay.
I know we like diamond tweeters, we like this, we like beryllium. That was a Melanex dome by Kef that was worked on by Rogers, and the crossover was fantastic. I'm just saying, I'm not saying, that it was the end-all, be-all, but for that design. It was excellent. I just don't see the progress. This is my opinion. I don't see the progress all the way from the 70s.
Physics hasn't changed.
I'm sorry? You're
physics
right.
hasn't changed. And so, these are things that were worked out pretty well a while ago. And
Sure.
there have been, has been progress. We're really on the cusp of some serious progress in terms of material sciences and how we are able to build things. So I think it's really exciting in terms of what we're going to see coming out in the next few years. But the bottom line is, physics hasn't changed.
Sure.
And so, and I think that instead of focusing so much on gear, that we need to be focusing on music,
Sure.
focusing on having fun, focusing on when people do, spend that $69 to get that pair of speakers, or they do, they get the Audio-Technica table and a pair of audio engines, we don't shit on them then when they post it online.
Absolutely.
Instead we go, fuck, I'm sorry, I swear a lot, so if anybody gets offended, fuck yeah, that's awesome. That's killer, let me tell you where a good used record store is.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to be embracing these people.
Absolutely.
Instead, you go online and somebody spends $50 on something, Lee, and he spends his own money on something, and instead he gets shit on for having something and actually expressing joy about it. We have lost our joy in this hobby. This is a hobby, and it's supposed to be fun. It's called playing music. And if you are not having a joyful experience with it, go do something else. There's plenty of other things to do with your life. And then if somebody is having fun, embrace them, and then show them, give them a place to start and show them a path to grow. Mentor people. We don't mentor people anymore.
It's been years. We don't mentor people, and for years we didn't mentor people. I've been doing this for about 35 years now, and my biggest problem with high-end, and I've always been in the high-end, my biggest problem with high-end is us. It's when, say, a customer that walked in that didn't really know what they were talking about got talked down to. Or just like Kathleen said, they bought the $50 thing instead of the $500 thing, and it's like, oh, it's not as good as mine, so you can't be as good. Most of you folks are probably audiophiles, I'm guessing, because you're here. And all of you probably know what kind of back and forth goes between audiophiles and non-audiophiles on some audiophiles or just audio websites. I got to tell you, I'm embarrassed. And I'm embarrassed a lot of times when customers walk into stores that, they pride themselves in selling $200,000 systems. I'm here to tell you that a good $250, $350, $500 system will make a lot of people, maybe not you, super, super proud. But a lot of people, and just like this gentleman was saying back here, from an emotional standpoint, you don't have to have apogees. You have to have music. We had AM radio in Motown, and that got me. It made the little hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It's not about how expensive your equipment is. It's about how good the stuff is at the lower prices that you can really set up to make sound incredible. And that's a lot of things that don't happen. So I think we need to just embrace, just like Kathleen said, God bless you, I think that's the greatest thing in the world. And this is not the enemy. You can get this to sound really good through a lot of things, a lot better than most people have now, because we got to figure in this room, we are the 1%ers. The 99%ers are out there. Those are the guys that we really would love to, drag into this side, but they're not going to be drug in from angry, and they're not going to be drug in from the top of the mountain. We've got to kind of meet those guys where they live and bring them up with us, as opposed to
where they are.
I got to say something. Yeah. So, I write and people read my stuff, but I don't know how they react to it unless they comment. So a couple of, maybe 2 months ago, a friend of my wife's was by, and we were talking about music, and this woman really loved music, and she had a pair of, white earbuds or something. And I said to her, so have you ever heard a decent set of headphones? And she said, aren't these decent? I said, not really. And I put on her head a pair of Bowers & Wilkins P3 on-ear headphones that are $200, I think. The joy, the woman just couldn't, jumping up and down and laughing. She had never heard anything like that. It was an amazing thing to see. She couldn't get over it. She said, I didn't know music could sound like that. And she ran out and got those headphones. So I think that everybody in this room, you should be, I can't think of a better word, evangelists for good quality sound. Doesn't have to be expensive. And your friends and relatives, that you should, in the right opportunity strikes, demonstrate something that they could reasonably buy, not something that they would be offended or crazed by the price, but something that was within their realm, and turn them on. That's it.
So we should really be validating whatever people do, even if it's a modest move towards better sound, as long as they're moving towards better. So to kind of vibe off Steve's other story there's a mobile phone company in China called Xiaomi, Xiaomi, I think. And they make a little earphone for Android phones. It's $35 on eBay. And you wouldn't think it was very much to look at, but it is the most incredible headphone relative to the little white earbuds that come as stock standard with Samsung phones and with iPhones. And I've recommended these Xiaomi earphones to at least 4 friends, going, just go and buy these, $35. It's not a lot to ask. And they go, yeah, okay, cool. And have you got a pair there, sir? Are they the Piston 3s? They're the Piston 3s. I got a pair upstairs in my room. I travel with them all the time because if I lose them, I just go and buy another pair. But I had 3 separate friends buy a pair, and they all messaged me going, thank you so much. This is like, I've not heard this before. And that's really cool. And that's a tiny step. And I think what you guys are saying earlier on is we should not be shitting on that experience. And even if they kind of just, go and buy a $200 set of speakers that we think is kind of ordinary, we should be going, that's really cool, because you're taking a step up from a Bluetooth speaker or your TV speakers or whatever horror shows people used to live with. So our job is to kind of validate, but also keep the message simple. So not drown the conversation. As soon as they ask the question, not drown the conversation, as we probably almost did here, with talk of high res and formats and things like that. But going, look, as you said, sir, you just need a pair of, bookshelf speakers and an integrated amp, or a pair of active monitors. Or, if you want to go a bit further up, a pair of Magnapans and then you need a beefier amplifier for those. But and just keep it really simple. Turntable, phono stage, amp, speakers, done. Don't sweat the small stuff, because people really recoil when you start to get into the nitty-gritty and they get confused. And they go, oh, it's just too complicated. I'm not going to bother. So, you want to say something, Steve? Or
the other thing is, everybody here, while you're at the show, you have to make it your business to hear these new ELAC speakers that start at $230 a pair. They are mind-boggling. There's never been anything that sounds like that for that kind of money. They're all designed by Andrew Jones, who used to work for Pioneer and KEF and Infinity. It's this new company, part of ELAC Germany, but it's now called ELAC America. $230 buys you a bookshelf speaker with a 5.25-inch woofer. He designed everything in the speaker. It's staggeringly good. And the next model up, which is $280 a pair, has a 6.5-inch woofer, which I think is definitely worth the $50 extra. But again, it's just like you can't believe something can sound that good for that kind of money.
So I think that's where you asked where has the progress been. Maybe not in technological leaps and bounds, but I don't think that good sound has ever been more affordable than it is today. These speakers like $200 that gets you, might not sound quite as good as an LS35A, but they won't be far off. And for kind of like our non-audiophile friends, that's going to be a life-changing experience for them, getting those speakers.
They'll jump up and down.
Yeah,
they will, literally.
And I think on the flip side too, I think I think the general animosity turns a lot of people off. I think on the flip side too, there's the other group that has a lot of animosity. If you do spend money, if you have the money to spend on this shit, awesome. If you don't, spend what you can. And we really need to make it about people enjoying their music, because that's why we got into this, right? I mean, I didn't get into it because, I got into it because I had no choice. But I was not given an option. But the reason why I stay in it is for the music, and I get to listen to music all the time, and I get paid for it.
What about the issue of? Oh, sir, you want to say something?
I just want to say that there are really, really bad speakers out there, okay? And I'm sorry, the B652s are horrible. They've got a 7 dB peak at 5K, comb filtering between the tweeter and the woofer. I mean, it uses just a cap for the crossover and does nothing to avoid comb filtering. It's not a good speaker, but it's highly recommended by many people.
For the money.
For the money, yeah.
Is there a better $60 speaker? that
You're
you can
better off
recommend?
not spending $60 on that.
It sounds better than most Bluetooth speakers that cost $300. Does it not?
I wouldn't recommend that either. Saying you have to have the
Okay.
look. What's the
You're not
title of
giving
this?
us
The title
options.
is what's the least amount you can spend. I think the least amount you can spend is maybe $100 on a pair of speakers, and $100 on an amp.
This is a good point, actually. I mean, because it is about how low can you go before everything turns to shit. And I know that, I mean, I've never heard these Dayton audio speakers. I know that Steve has. But I think Steve's excitement about those is not how good they are per se, but that they return this stereo experience to the listener. So it's not just about removing Bluetooth from the equation, the transmission method, but just left and right and having like what you might call a soundstage or stereophony or whatever in the middle, which I think for a lot of people, that's a big leap forward, even though we might look down and go, well, they're a bit peaky or they're a bit this.
It's not just a little peaky, it's bad. It's bad.
Right.
Okay.
It's I would not recommend it.
Can you recommend a $100 speaker that sounds better?
I would say the Klipsch B10.
$100 a pair?
Yeah, $100 a pair on Amazon right now.
Okay.
And
I will check it out.
It's got a 4.5 inch, and
Okay.
it's got a little tiny Klipsch tweeter. Mica MB42X. It has a better response. It has an 18 dB crossover on both the tweeter and the woofer. Surprise, surprise. And it's got a wider frequency range.
Okay.
I mean, both of those are highly recommended. Sound pretty decent.
Okay.
There's also I think it was announced last year, there's Andrew Jones
Can we get a microphone?
Right, the Andrew Jones design
The
Pioneer
Pioneer
speakers are
Yeah.
$129 a pair, are way better than the Daytons, but they're twice as much money.
Yeah.
The Micas are only $70.
I've heard them. I'm not with you on
Well,
those.
the MB42X, not the 42s. They
I
have to
don't
have
recall.
crossover on them. Anyway, that's fine.
Sir at the back, did you want to say something or just? Right, okay. Does anybody else have any hardware, affordable audio they want to kind of give a shout out to or kind of recommend? Yes, sir.
I think that a lot of what we're talking
Can we just hold? Can we hold on for a mic? Yeah, thanks.
a lot of what we're
Just flip this way.
Hello. Yeah, I think a lot of what we're talking about is that just the standard traditional two speakers and everything that we kind of grew up with, but really where the market looks to be moving to is headphones. And that's the way a lot of younger people, that's the way they enjoy their music. And you look at the Can Jam, that's just like blowing up. So I think we argue this amongst ourselves and stuff, and I just think it's kind of like it's moving past that.
Actually, well, two-channel actually is very alive and well.
Mhm.
There's a lot more two-channel being sold these days than home theater. What's cool about Can Jam is the thing that we lost as cars started putting more sophisticated stereos. We lost car stereo. So from an industry perspective, headphones are one of the best things that's happened to this industry because you look at the demographic in Can Jam, and it is opposite the demographic that you see in the towers.
Yes.
It's not a bunch of old white guys. What you see kids, you see women there. I hung out at the Can Jam at Newport, and it was a lot of fun. There was a dad that brought in his son and his two friends, and I'll do a little AudioQuest plug because I was sitting at the AudioQuest booth, of course. And the kids were super excited because they wanted to hear the Nighthawks. And last summer, they had all saved their money to buy their own Dragonflies, and they were using it with the free earbuds. And they had been saving all their money this summer, mowing lawns, to buy a pair of Nighthawks, because they're $600, and they basically every summer can save up about $200. And they were sitting there working out a custody arrangement for the headphones, and that's fucking awesome. You know, to have like some 14-year-old kids that excited about a $600 pair of headphones is really cool.
And that is high end.
And that's high end.
Yeah.
And those are the kids that we need to keep, right? And, you know, if we tell them, oh, well, the pair of speakers you bought is shit, well, that's, you know, they had $200 to earn that summer. That's the pair of speakers they could afford. Instead, why don't we say, hey, yeah, that's awesome, and here's some great music, you know, help them out, and, you know, foster that and help them grow, and, you know, take them out listening, so because next summer they're going to earn another $200.
So I think this is where we came in with this conversation, because where Steve and I were talking this time last year, and cornered Marjorie, who organises the whole show, and saying, look, you know, we walk around the Can Jam and prices start at, say, $200, $300, and then you walk into the tower or the other mini tower, whatever you call it, and prices don't start that low. You know, they're like, entry level is $3,000 or $5,000. So this is why we kind of were talking, well, why can't we have $500 entry point? I think actually we started with $100.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
And like, would it be possible to show a $100 system? This gentleman probably reckons not. $100 system at a show like this and not get literally laughed it out of the room. But I think Margie wanted to kind of extend it to 5 and 15, which I think is a good compromise.
You know, in Can Jam, the cheapest headphone I've heard so far there is a new Fostex, a new revision of a model called RP50, which is about $160. It's a planar magnetic headphone, works on phones. This thing is unbelievable for that kind of money. That is bona fide high-end, well, not audiophile quality for that kind of money that didn't exist before.
And that's the super interesting thing, is that actually they can now be powered by mobile phones.
Right.
There are so many very, very nice headphones coming out that don't need all that power. And that's a really big change.
That's a huge shift.
You can have a super experience with just your phone and a decent pair of headphones.
Right.
That's a hi-fi experience.
One thing that doesn't get, I think doesn't get mentioned very often about the headphone world is that it's insular and private, and 2-channel is infinitely more sociable. You can sit in a room with you and your friends and play records. You know, VPI Nomad with the headphone output, you've got to sit there on your own and pass the headphones around, and that's just dumb. So the sociability aspect of 2-channel, I think, you know, Head-Fi likes to think it's saving the universe a lot of the time, but it will never, ever replace the sociability of having speakers in a room. And the shared, you talk about experiencer, the shared experience there, that's very powerful.
It's the gateway, though. It's a gateway.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the real benefit of the headphone business, is it's a gateway. And those kids are eventually going to have girlfriends that they want to listen to music with. It's hard to make out when you're listening with headphones.
Can we go here, then here, then here, right?
Yeah, you were mentioning some of the best deals in audio. I think if someone wants to get into a little bit of DIY and it's fun, you can get a flat pack from DIY Sound Group.
Right.
That amazing speakers, if you just want to get together and, you know, with a friend or whatever, and even if you get together, it's a flat pack that goes together very easily. Excellent sounding speakers for the money. I mean, we're talking some of those designs, I think, between $200 and $500.
Right, that's a sensible price point to start with.
Yeah, and it'd be hard to buy something at between $200 and $500 that will equal the sound of the DIY Sound Group stuff. It's really neat.
Cool, thank you. Did we want to go here? Paul, did you want to say something? Or?
I'll just comment on the insular headphone thing.
Right.
I think you've all seen teenagers leaning in and sharing a pair of earbuds. Some phones now come with 2 outputs.
Even Pono comes with 2 headphone outputs.
And you'll see some phones coming out with connectivity that we've arranged some silent discos. We have like 500 people with Sennheiser headphones on them, and they're dancing together, having an incredible time, because you have EDM going straight into your head. I mean, it's incredible. You have light. It's like being at the disco.
It's
And-
entertaining as hell, though, when you walk in and you
Yeah.
have headphones on.
It's-
Everybody else has got
It's the
headphones
most
on.
bizarre thing, but being there and taking part is
It's
great.
cool.
And you will soon get phones where you can just say, I want to listen to the same thing as she's listening to right now, so we can just go and
It's still hard to make out with headphones on.
yeah.
I think 2 channels is going to be fine.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments at this point? Yes, sir. Can we get a microphone to you before we tap your enthusiasm? I can see you're leaning forward furiously.
On. Just regarding, the like the lower price systems and some of that budget audio you were talking about, pretty much 100% of that type of amplifier is driven by a Class D design. Mm-hmm. And I know that was a bane at one time. Any audiophile like, Class D, so now it's everywhere. Is there any thoughts on that?
Well, we had that one up on the screen before, the Emotiva. That's AB. That's $219. It's really good.
Yeah, I do. Well, I actually own part of a company called Peachtree Audio as well, and we went to AB amplifier. Digital amplifiers under great duress. I was pissed off, and finally my partner talked me into listening to some of these new digital amplifiers are much better than they ever were. The problem with digital amplifiers is they never used to sample high enough. So the power supply never could get out of the way of the bandwidth of the amplifier. So you got all of this crap. We do AB amps at where I'm from, so I mean I can say this with
impunity,
no prejudice. In that some of the digital amplifiers these days are just fantastic, mouth-watering good. But AB amplifiers are great as well. I think some up here would just die if they ever went to digital amplifiers. But I think some of them are fantastic. Some of them suck. A really big part of that's the power supply and what they are. But the new B&Os are fantastic. The high-techs are incredible. And we've done some listening with some 40 grand amplifiers against some of these very inexpensive digital amps, and they're getting really, really good and
There's also,
really efficient.
And it's we're talking about super entry level stuff, but there's also been some really awesome stuff kind of coming out in the kind of maybe the next step up from what we were talking about. You look at like what Rogue is doing. You look at what VPI's done with the Nomad. You look at like what Zoo's doing. Some really, really, really good high-end sound made in America, and it's cool. It's fun, and it's being made by people that are actually enjoying music and actually listen to music and are having a great time, and. It's a really solid, I think, pathway for people now, and that there's this great, we have great headphones, kind of bring people in. We have, these great, super affordable systems, and then the mid-fi world, that mid-priced area, is better than it's ever been. I think we should be really fucking excited. We are in a golden age of audio. Analog is better than it's ever been. Digital is better than it's ever been. We have millions of records at our fingertips, and gear is better than it's ever been. This is awesome. We should be having way more fun.
Yeah.
So I want to. Right at the back. Can we get a microphone right at the back? I was going to move it on to something else, but I'll hold that.
Yeah, I started a small business in my community. I'm doing exactly what we're doing, trying to turn people on a little higher quality sound. And the most effective, I've tried a lot of different stuff, and the most effective way I found to get people to listen was through video, playing mainly concert videos, Blu-rays or DVDs. Because I have people over, and oftentimes people won't sit for more than a minute or so listening to 2-channel, but I put a video on, and they'll sit there for the whole 2-3 hours sometimes. So I find that to be a very effective tool to turn people onto higher quality sound. And another thing I found is people need a place to go, more so than what to buy or whatever. There's been a disappearance of audio shops around the world, so people don't know where to go. And they're not so much interested in what to get. They just want music and they want to know what to play it on. So I think those are the two things I discovered myself was people just need a place to go. So I just have my favorite websites that are easy to remember, and I tell people them, and so they know someplace they can call where people listen to what they have to say and listen to what they need, and they can make a good recommendation. And then once again, like I said, the video I find to be by far the most effective tool to really turn people onto sound. People, if I say, hey, you want to come over and listen to music, most people are like, nah. I'm like, hey, you want to come over and watch, like 9 Inch Nails Blu-ray? They're like, oh yeah, I'll be over. So that was just a suggestion I would make for a way to, because where I live, home theater, I know very few people who are buying stereos, but people are buying home theater. So I just think that's an effective tool to get, people more into the music and enjoying it.
Home theater is actually kind of on the decline a bit. Most of the dealers I go to are doing a lot more 2-channel these days. But one thing that's interesting that feeds right into that is about a third of the videos viewed on YouTube are concert videos and music videos. YouTube is a fantastic source for music. Is it high res? No. But you know what? It's really fucking fun.
Yep, it's a lot of fun, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I've seen so many concerts all around the world, just on YouTube.
We have 85,000 videos in TIDAL. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and TIDAL.
Chris wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're talking about, how low can you go, the affordability. The joint for hi-fi for me was the Grado SR60 headphone, and it was kind of, I'm probably part millennial, like I'm on the pendulum swing back, where it's one thing the hipsters got right is everybody bought into downloading digital music from iTunes, and thousands of dollars later you have no tangible representation for your purchase, and you have nothing that you can truly share with your friends, and that kind of forced online music to become far more community based. But to the headphone topic that was a few moments ago, that is what really got me into it. Was I loved music, and I was able to take my music with me, and the single device, this SR60s, made what I had already sound better. And then it began that curiosity, and it was about the experience, because I could tell my friends, go get these $65 headphones, they're worth it. And that was the gateway product for me, and it was affordable, but it was directly connected to my experience, the mobility of my music, and what I wanted to enjoy. But that's what got me started.
You've struck an amazing point here, which is I was going to try and move this towards conclusion. And what you've said there is you're basically saying that the message I think we should be promoting is how to make existing catalogs sound better, your existing music collection sound better, whatever the format. I don't care if you use it to Spotify; it sounds pretty good if you run it through an entry-level system. Whatever you have, whatever you've got right now, make that sound better. Where things go awry, and I never talk about this with my non-audiophile friends, and I think it's off-putting. If you start talking about high res and go, oh no, but you've got to get this like at $24.96 because it's a different world. Sorry, it's not a different world. It's like infinitesimally marginally better, I guess. I mumbled my words there, completely messed it up. But it's a very, very minor difference that you might not hear even on an entry-level system. And I think the high-res conversation is fucking it up for a lot of entry-level people. And I feel quite strongly about this, as you can probably tell by the use of my F-bomb there. And so...
I'm just a bad influence.
Yeah. So this is why I'm kind of bullish about TIDAL, because it brings the CD quality conversation back into the mix, which seems to get lost, because we kind of hear a lot about how rubbish MP3s are and how amazing DSD is, and it gets lost in the middle, and that's where all the music is. And that's what people own. That's what my friends have. They got CD collections, and they got their old record collections, perhaps, but mainly CDs. And I want to be able to tell them how to make those CDs sound really good. I'm getting a waiver of 6 minutes over here. So I'm going to go 10. Ramsey told me 10. So I'm going to ask our panel if they had like one single message to an entry-level audiophile or somebody who's curious, what would they say? One point to kind of bring somebody closer or get them to buy a kind of cool sounding system. And maybe no pressure, we'll start with Steve.
Well, I thought you were going to say this in your little ramble there, that high res, high schmez. If you get better speakers or better headphones like that, I told you about that woman, they will hear a gigantic difference. They won't have to struggle to, is this better? It will be a lot better. And I think that's the main thing. Better speakers, assuming they have an amplifier to connect them to, or headphones, that kind of eliminates that issue because they can always use them with their phone. And they will definitely hear the difference. And once they get that charge from hearing much better sound, kind of the rest follows. They will ask you, what do I get next? They'll be interested in it. One of the guys at CNET bought a turntable a few years ago, and this man showed no interest in audio. He knows what I do for a living. For the previous 7 years I work with him, never asked me anything about audio. He got this turntable every time I see him. How about this cartridge? Should I get that cartridge? What kind of amplifier should I get? Is that photo preamp and that receiver good? He's like constantly asking me these questions because he got this turntable, and the rest just follow. So better speakers, if they have a way of playing speakers. If they don't have a way of getting speakers, the Lepi amplifier sells for a whole $25. So the not having an amplifier part isn't really an issue because you can put your phone into the $25 amplifier into the speakers. So for under $100, you're in. To you.
Can I just recap just what Steve just said? Because it's very important, and you're right, I should have said it, is that the hardware change is far more impactful than the format change. Hardware first, format way later. Whatever you want to go with. David Solomon.
I couldn't agree more. I think this was a great segue for the end of the conversation. 320 to me right now is a whole lot better than AM or FM or 8-track or cassette. I actually enjoy it, and if you put it through pretty good stuff, the better headphones, the better D to A converters, you can get it to sound really, really good. Do I like really well 2496 or 192 better if it were in my own home and I'm really, sitting down doing this stuff? Absolutely. Do I like vinyl better than 320? Sure I do. But you can get these days, to Kathleen's point, a lot of really, really great audio for not a lot of gear that would make somebody really proud if somebody else isn't sitting, next to them going, that thing that you're really enjoying, that sucks. Because it really doesn't. We've all got our own reference point. So I just think that we end up being more tolerant in this industry. I think TIDAL, dream frickin' come true to me. Now I don't have to do anything except pull 35 million tracks off of here and then play it through whatever I want to play it through, which starts at, when I'm at my hotel, a little maybe it's $40 Bluetooth piece. It's this big. It's a crap load better than the sound I get off that. Compared to this is high end. Compared to that Bluetooth speaker, the next Bluetooth speaker above it is high end. Compared to that, the next wireless speaker above that is good. Everything gets better. You can continue to make things sound better. So really all I really care about is give me as much good music as I can get, and I'll put it on the best system that I can afford to get, that I can enjoy. Personally, I'd kind of like to have a really huge maybe pair of Vandersteins, but I can't afford the $70,000, so my 1.7s have to do. But it's pretty damn nice, right? And it wouldn't make me feel great if somebody that owned those $70,000 Vandersteins came to my place and went, this really kind of sucks, compared to what I've got. It really doesn't, because I'm enjoying it, and that's all that's important.
Yeah, I would say I would take a step beyond being tolerant, and I think we need to be joyful.
I agree.
I think all of us got into this because we were probably sitting in a car, and a great song came on that reminded us of something. Or, I grew up with a giant pair of Stax headphones planted on my head at, about 18 months old. So all of us got into this because we loved music, and we don't pass that love. Like we've made this club very, very insular and kind of dickish, and in a few different ways. And you know, I think all of us want more people in our club, and we want to have more fun. And it all starts with us having more fun and sharing that joy with people.
Last word to you then, Paul.
What Kathleen said. Basically, I mean, it is. I think we can be normative about one thing, and that's enjoy the music.
But hardware still matters. Like,
It
and
does.
this is why we're here.
It totally does, and it's funny
It's
to
a transportation device.
It's funny
It
to
is.
observe that, and we haven't really talked about that. It's funny to observe some of the pedigree brands are now creating what is still super expensive for people, but they're making more affordable products, like the name Muso.
Yeah.
For instance, that's selling a lot, at least in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's a very intriguing product because it has everything from the pedigree feel, but it
has a high-end feel, but it's affordable, right? Yeah.
So it's interesting to observe that a lot of the pedigree brands are also creating things that other people can buy as well.
And it's relatable as well.
Yeah.
You can imagine this in your house and go, that would look cool in my house.
Yeah.
Because looks are important as well, but we didn't get that.
So
but-
that would be the next step up for people
Yeah.
that started at the 500 thing. Suddenly
Yeah.
they want to do a $1,000 thing, and perhaps they're not going to end up on a $30,000 thing, all of them. But if they can level up a little bit and enjoy the music, that's great.
So I've not been there yet, but there are 3 rooms. Is it in the smaller tower or the bigger tower?
The second floor.
Second floor, yeah. Thank you very much. I would implore you to go and have a listen. And you might go, well, this is not for me, but you might go, this is my friend who might spend $500 on this stuff. I'm sure there's some great sound to be had. Thank you so much for coming, and thanks to our panel, Steve, David, Kathleen, and Paul.